Chapter 12 of The Mandalorian, The Siege, directed by Grief Karga himself, Carl Weathers, went pretty much as a lot of us expected. After the Ahsoka Tano name drop last week, we knew we probably wouldn't jump straight into it. The pattern for this season so far has felt like one chapter that moves the main story forward significantly, then a side quest, then a main story, then a side quest. But this felt like an example of one of those side quest episodes done right. The Mandalorian didn't make significant progress towards his main goal, but we still got some questions partially answered, and Moff Gideon's grip is shown to be tightening. We open up on the Razor Crest, which is still pretty heavily damaged and malfunctioning, so much so that Din has shoved the child into a tiny hole to do some repairs in a funny scene. I feel like we're seeing Mando improve his parenting skills this season, but it's very much a 2 steps forward, 1 step back situation, and getting your tiny green son electrocuted is for sure a step back, even if he's fine. They share a little meal together afterwards, and Mando says they're going to head back to Nevarro for repairs, but we see him lifting up his helmet a bit to take a sip of whatever he's got. Maybe he's been doing that for a while, but I think it's absolutely on purpose to show us that now. This could be a sign that he's already questioning his upbringing and philosophy. After his run-in with Bo-Katan, he might be a little more lenient on the whole helmet thing. He's not ready to fully remove it, but maybe just a little bit. Just, to eat. There's no harm in that, right? I imagine we're building up to him letting go of his rigidness and removing the helmet himself completely. So they get back to Nevarro, where things are looking a lot better. Instead of serving as a hub for bounty hunters, it's more of an actual town with a school and law enforcement and markets. There's even a statue of IG-11 in the town square. Grief has taken more of an administrator role like Lando at Cloud City, and Cara is the town's marshal. I really like seeing the show lean into the Outer Rim as the Wild West, showing that planets like Nevarro and Tatooine are very much on their own. Karga says the Empire couldn't clean the territory up, so why does the New Republic think it can? These settlements have to look out for themselves to keep the peace. Everything is going well, except there is still an Imperial base that for some reason has yet to be abandoned, and they ask Din to help clear it out, to which he quickly agrees while his ship is being fixed. The infiltration of the base was fun. It felt a lot like the attack on the New Republic prison ship. I remember being surprised that the Mithril was coming back this season after seeing him in the trailer, but I thought the reason for his return made enough sense, and he brought some decent comedy to the mix, whining about how there wasn't a guardrail on the reactor controls and stuff like that. But where this episode started to shift away from simple adventure of the week was when the group learns that the base is more than it seems. We see some tanks of malformed bodies and learn that Moff Gideon and Dr. Pershing were attempting to take blood with high M counts and transfuse it into other beings. M count is obviously metachlorian count, so what are the Imperials up to? I've already seen some theories thrown around, like maybe we're seeing the early stages of Snoke or attempts at a Palpatine clone, and I don't think it's either. Gideon doesn't appear to be part of the group that will eventually become the First Order, and Snoke was a creation of Palpatine, so I think Gideon is doing his own thing here. I think he wants to become Force-sensitive by transfusing Force-sensitive blood. But so far that seems to have had disastrous effects on the hosts that have been experimented on. This was something that was attempted in Star Wars Legends as well, and it doesn't work. Nor should it. That's not how the Force works. I love the idea that Moff Gideon wants this power though, but he doesn't know how to earn it. He wants to get it the quick and easy way. But the irony is, I personally believe anyone can become Force sensitive if they learn to balance themselves and be at one with the universe. Gideon could, in theory, become Force sensitive, but he'd probably have to change everything about himself. I don't want to write off the possibility of cloning being involved here because Pershing and those other guys all have Kaminoan patches on their uniforms, but I could also see them simply doing the blood work, being like biological scientists. Most of the rest of the action within the base is pretty inconsequential. Mando rushes back to the school where he left the child now that he knows why Gideon is after him. Grief, Cara, and the Mithril head back on their own, pursued by speeder bikes and TIE fighters, and that was all fine. I get the sense that Carl Weathers is treating this whole experience like a theme park ride. Molly pointed out that last season in Chapter 6, his hologram message plays like a video you might see in the line before you get on a ride at Disney World or something, and I don't really mean that as a knock. I think Carl sees Star Wars as a lot of fun, and it should be. The chase through the canyon also felt like something you might see in Star Tours, an exciting chase with some fun visuals, but in the back of your mind you know nobody in that thing is in any real danger. and just when you think they might be, Din flies back in to save the day in the fixed-up Razor Crest, and the dogfighting sequence was pretty great. Honestly, I found myself being mostly worried about the ship more than anything else because I just didn't want it to get wrecked again. But between the repair sequence at the start of the episode and Baby Yoda putting up his hands to cheer while they're flying, again another reference to this episode just being an exciting theme park style ride, I think Carl Weathers really shines directing that puppet. I laughed at, I think, every scene he was in, whether he's stealing that student's macaroons or vomiting them up after being on Din Djarin's wild ride. Baby Yoda was really fun to watch. The Razor Crest heads off, and then we see the return of Carson, the New Republic pilot. We already got some setup that he and Trapper were basically cops in Chapter 10, and they lean into that even harder here with him writing in his notebook and interrogating Greef. In the past 2 weeks, I've also learned just how much of a Star Wars fan Paul Sun-Hyung Lee is, and now I just get warm fuzzies seeing him and imagining him having the time of his life being in this universe. I'm glad that he acknowledges an Imperial presence in the Outer Rim, and that the people of the core, quote, don't believe it. He wants to help, but he can't do it without local support, and he tells Kara as much. For our final scene, we cut over to Imperial space in an Arquitens-class cruiser, which I literally clapped for. In my Q&A tomorrow, I say that I hope to see Gideon in command of a smaller fleet. I want him to have some firepower, he should be a threat, but I didn't want him to have a full-on Star Destroyer like nothing at all has changed since the battles of Endor and Jakku. This is a perfect illustration of that in my opinion, and it's yet another thing that was originally created for animation that we're now seeing in live action for the first time. We learned that one of Karga's maintenance people put a tracking device on the Razor Crest, which is great. I love that development. That makes the sudden appearance of Gideon possible at any moment in any episode. Then we actually see Gideon in the flesh, and he seems to have a trick up his sleeve. It's hard to tell exactly what lines the halls of his ship, but let's get to speculating. There's an Imperial engineer seen working on those things, and he's wearing the same type of uniform as Galen Erso's team in Rogue One. On his back, he's got the logo for the Imperial Department of Military Research, which really just tells us that these things are weapons, and I mean, duh. To me, it looks like they're battle droids of some sort. The joints at the hands resemble some of the pieces of the KX series of droids, like K2SO. These are most likely something new, just a new type of Imperial battle droid to fill out Gideon's army, since I assume he's got a limited supply of men. But these things are really giving me Dark Trooper vibes. In Legends, that was one of the projects the Imperial Department of Military Research worked on, and they were exactly what I described. Imperial battle droids featured in the 1995 game Dark Forces. The Dark Trooper project has already inspired the Imperial DT series of sentry droids seen in Star Wars Rebels, but I wonder if we're going to get a new live-action version of the concept. Again, something from my childhood that I've only really seen in pixelated form that would blow me away to see on screen. And I love that this episode has got me thinking and speculating and theorizing so much. Like I said, so much of the siege seemed to be theme park inspired, a fun, exciting adventure of the week for the most part, but there were just enough main plot details that it didn't feel like a complete detour. We got at least some answers to a major question we've had since we learned the Empire wanted the child, and we got some teases for what's to come. And now we get to spend at least a week, probably much longer, speculating on Gideon's endgame with Force-sensitive blood. What's he building on his ship? When will we see him again? And so on. I'm gonna guess that we might see him again very soon. The next episode was written and directed by Dave Filoni, and I have to assume that means Ahsoka is coming. I don't think she'll become a major part of the series, but it sure would make sense to see Gideon, the only other character with a lightsaber, pop up to fight her now that he can track the Razor Crest. And he'll probably get his butt kicked, which will only make his desire for Force sensitivity stronger if I'm right about that being his goal. But for now, we're back in wait-and-see mode, so let me know what you thought of the siege in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with our Mandalorian coverage every week, follow us on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.